everybody, welcome back to A Brief on Grief. Today I want to talk shame. I think, well, I've definitely talked about shame before. I've definitely made some videos on it very early on, but I've definitely been reflecting a lot on shame the last few weeks, in part due to this fabulous workshop that I took on self-compassion as the antidote. I can't say that word. Self-compassion for shame. And it just, you know from, I've talked about shame a lot in these videos on and off before, and it's part of my passion is to talk about how shame impacts our lives and how it controls, I would say, almost every decision we make. I know that's a broad statement, but and in being in this workshop the last couple of weeks has helped ground me more in that, like, how prominent shame is in our lives and how prominent it is in human suffering. And again, like, just for those that are not familiar with that word shame, I know a couple of years ago, I didn't even think about the word shame. I don't know. But part of why we don't think about the word shame or talk about the word shame, or that there's any even conversation or dialogue around that word or that emotion, is because there's so much shame attached to the word shame, shame attached to feeling shame. So, and shame thrives in silence and isolation. So when we're feeling yucky feelings that make us want to hide away, it's a good bet that shame is a part of that. And again, we've learned from grief that grief is can be felt by a number of different emotions, right? And shame is one of those feelings underneath that grief umbrella. So in thinking about shame the last couple of weeks, and I just wanted to tell you, to remind you, so shame is that, like, yucky, uncomfortable feeling that makes you want to, like, put your head in a hole. It is the feeling, any feelings, is the feeling of you're not enough. So I'm not smart enough, I'm not thin enough, I'm not successful enough, I don't have enough money, I'm not likable enough, I don't have enough friends. Or on the other side is hearing messages from other people or yourself. Again, because shame can be external, you can get it from other people, but you can also put it on yourself. So those messages that say you're too much, so things you hear about being too sensitive or too needy or needing too much from people or needing too much attention or needing too much whatever. So anyway, it's either not enough or too much. So all of those along that spectrum, they're all judgments, right? They're all judgments of ourselves or other people. And it's the opposite of love. Maybe I won't go into that right now. I wanted to talk about that eventually, but actually that kind of leads into where I was going. The shame and judgment of ourselves and others is the opposite of love, right? When we're loving ourselves and we're loving other people, that's about acceptance and being and honoring the person that they are for what they are. So I got reminded in this workshop about our universal need as human beings to feel loved, to be loved. We all need this. And unfortunately, we have a culture that's actually shamed our need for human connection, has shamed our need for love, right? Our human desire we have to be loved, to be connected to other people, and to belong in this world. And we have been shamed. We have a society that tells us be super independent, try not to need people too much. Again, there you go, too much. Try not to need people too much. Try not to share your burdens and your pain too much, because that burdens other people or makes them feel uncomfortable. That runs along with some of the grief myths that we've talked about. Compete with everybody, try to be, one up. Like, we have a culture like that. So we have a culture that pulls us away from human connection. We have a culture that pulls us away from vulnerability. We have a culture that's built on shame and fear. Sadly, very sadly. And that is the opposite of love. That is the opposite of the way we were supposed to live. That's the opposite of who we are innately, energetically. We are made out of love. And we live in an environment and we create an environment in our minds that is about judgment and shame and fear and suffering. So when I was sitting and reflecting a lot on shame this week, I thought, yeah, it just feels like, I mean, a lot of people talk about there's like two main emotions, love and fear. And that all the other emotions kind of that are out there kind of either or have a base of love or fear underneath them. And I do still see that. Like I see how that is, but I almost think it's either love or shame, because love and the opposite of love is shame. So I think that everything actually comes from those two bases, right? So, and in this workshop, I was thinking, yeah, I mean, all our human desires to be loved. We all have that need. And so when we're suffering, it's because we're not feeling loved, right? So anything that feels like that, not being seen, not being heard, not being valued, having our voice and our truth not be seen, be heard, be valued, that makes us feel unloved. And I know from previous stuff that I've worked with and with my own experience, about any time we have a failed bit of connection, so love, connection is love, anytime there's a failed bit of connection with somebody we care about, we feel shame, right? So the suffering we feel is shame when we're not feeling loved, right? So whether you're reaching out to connect with somebody, or even like reaching out to connect in a more global way, maybe in a community, like say your group of people that you work with or whatever, right? Anytime you feel like you're not accepted, and you're not belonging and you're not loved, that creates shame. So it just feels like we're either loving or we're shaming. So we're either loving ourselves and accepting and being with all of us, or we're shaming ourselves. So we're shaming, blaming, complaining, judging ourselves, right? Anything that's a judgment is shame. And then when we go outside of ourselves, I think we're either loving other people or we're shaming other people. We're judging them, we're blaming them, we're criticizing them, we're waiting for them to change. That's like an indirect thing, right? Hoping that they'll change so that we feel better about something or whatever. That's, I think, is just like a more just kind of hidden form of shame, an indirect form of shame. Because again, it's not about full acceptance of who somebody is. So, yeah, so I really, and where fear comes in it for me, I think, or the way I understand it, is that we're either loving and feeling loved, or feeling shame because we're not feeling loved by the people that we care about, or we feeling like we're not connected and are not belonging with the people that matter in our world, or we're fearing not being loved. We're fearing feeling shame. And I remember having an epiphany, something about that like a couple months back, and then I actually, the gentleman that was running our workshop here the last couple weeks, he said a statement that reminded me of that, right? He was just like, we're all running around with this desire to be loved and to be seen and heard for who we truly are, to speak our truths, but we're also running around in fear of judgment from other people, fear of shame from other people, fear of losing those connections. So again, fear of grief, right? Fear of experiencing loss and disconnection from people. So we're fearing not being loved. We're fearing being judged and shamed. Which, I mean, it explains the way this whole world works, right? We're running around trying to like go, perform, act, for that worthiness, for that feeling of being worthy of love, so that we don't feel judged and shamed. I could talk forever on this, but that's probably what's really resonating the strongest with me right now in the last few weeks. We'll see what comes next. Okay, see you guys next time.